Welcome to episode 6. Can you believe it, Spencer? 6 of the Spen and Nick show. That's
Amazing,
exciting, right?
incredibly exciting. Yeah, so good. It's really cool that we're doing it so close to Christmas as well. We could very easily have taken this week off, but that's not what this is about. This is about pursuing our dream. Keep on going, keep the focus, keep the faith. We've probably got, 4 or 5 listeners at the moment. But
And I think one or two of those is us listening to it twice as well.
exactly. But no, you've got to keep on pursuing this. Got to keep on fighting. Perseverance is key, right? Consistency.
Absolutely. And I've got to say, I think that's a lovely segue now to talk about something that's been on my mind for a little while is creative discomfort. So I was watching back through one of John Cleese's fantastic videos. It's called On Creativity in Management. He says that creativity is not a talent, it's a way of operating. And the story that he gave to highlight this was when he was working on producing scripts for Monty Python, one of his colleagues was much more talented, but he never seemed to create scripts that were as original as John Cleese's were. And what he said was that his colleague would kind of come up with some ideas, and then when it hit 5 o'clock, he'd settle for whatever idea that he'd come up with one of the ideas that he'd come up with. And John said he actually himself did something quite different. What he would do is he wouldn't settle for any old idea just because he wanted to go home, and he easily could have. Instead, what he would do is he'd push through that barrier and just keep going, keep coming up with ideas until he got one that he was satisfied with. And he called this concept creative discomfort. And it's that idea where you push yourself through your comfort zone and you keep searching for new ideas, new solutions to problems. And it's that feeling that you experience when you're going through that kind of unknown, uncertain, anxious period where you don't have a solution to your problem. And I just thought this was absolutely fantastic. And there's some research from Donald McKinnon that says that the most creative professionals are the ones that push through their boundaries, keep searching for longer than others do. So yeah, I think this idea of creative discomfort, pushing yourself through your boundaries and experiencing those difficult moments without having a solution or an answer, I think is really important. I think in some ways it's kind of what we've been experiencing a lot. What are your thoughts on that, Spencer?
Yeah, I think it's such a good point, and it takes that idea of perseverance and continuing to push things onto a new level. Do you have to kind of get yourself out into that discomfort, like push yourself out of your comfort zone in order to kind of create the best work? Do you think you've kind of forced that out, or is that something which is naturally occurs when you hit some difficulties and some barriers?
I think that's a fantastic question, and I like to think that it happens when you push yourself beyond your boundaries and really extend yourself. However, I don't think it's always the case. You know that I love coming up with 10 solutions whenever I need to have an idea. And what I find is sometimes the best ideas come immediately, and sometimes the best ideas are the very first ideas. And other times, the best ideas don't come until the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 21st idea. So I think sometimes pushing yourself really reaps rewards, and other times actually you just end up using your very first idea. However, I think the process of pushing yourself beyond your boundary and trying to search for those new ideas is inherently a good exercise to build your creativity muscle.
Yeah, totally. I love that, and we talk about that quite a lot. About that, the fact that creativity is a muscle that you can grow, you can get stronger at, you can become more creative, and I think that, coming all the way back, that belief is almost at odds with this belief that some people have about creativity being an innate talent, and it totally is something that can be built upon. And I think, the lesson that we have to take away from this, I think, which is a really important lesson that so many people can take away, is that by by carrying on and persevering and pushing yourself to the outer limits, find that edge, and then push a little bit further out of your comfort zone, really into that kind of creative discomfort zone, as you've talked about. That's the way to find the magic. That's the way to find those little gems of creativity that mean that you're going to be able to leapfrog other people around you. Even if you look at what those people that were the Pythons, what they were like, those amazing actors, comedians, writers, incredible talent, incredible content that was produced over a number of years, and continued way beyond them separating as well. But yet Cleese was able to keep on going, which meant that he was raising his game all the time, and it probably meant that everyone else had to raise their game as well in order to compete against him, in order to kind of make sure that they're pulling their weight as well in terms of the writing and the creative output that they were creating. So yeah, amazing. I think that's something that we can totally take on board. Keep on going, push yourself to that limit, find that edge, and then just sneak a little bit past it, and you're gonna find new insights and new discoveries and new ways of doing things.
And we've used it ourselves, just to put it in context. When we were trying to come up with the title for episode 2 or episode 3, I think that was a point that I came up with 10 ideas, and the first few were terrible. The first few ideas I came up with, but then I thought, just keep going, and then something came out around episode 8. And then I was like, I quite like this, and because it was Spen's fixed mindset epiphany.
That's right.
I just wanted, and then I thought something to do with make it more personal. See if we can kind of really get into it. And then by number 10, that's where I came up with it, and I was quite pleased with that. It's not the perfect title, but I think what it does is it's a little bit different because I've heard lots of podcasts about the growth mindset, whereas this one is definitely, I think, unique to us, which I was quite happy with.
Yeah, and I think that's the highest listened to one. So there's a good chance that that's because of the title, because it brings in that personal element and that kind of interest and intrigue for people as well.
Definitely, and so I think that's our own example of where we've used this idea of building your creativity muscle and going beyond going through that creative discomfort, because I certainly felt it. I felt quite frustrated that I didn't have the answer, but I'm so glad that I kept pushing. And just to go back to John Cleese, because he's such a funny guy, and I've got such fond memories of watching like the Fawlty Towers as well. I was absolutely loved watching that growing up. And funnily enough, my godfather, he grew up in Weston-super-Mare, and that's the same hometown of John Cleese. And John Cleese actually went back to Weston-super-Mare after going to university and taught at school for 2 years. And interestingly enough, my godfather was in his class being taught English.
No.
And you know what?
Wow.
Which is really funny, yeah? Is my godfather somehow has a very similar humour to John Cleese. You can see it's rubbed off on him somehow, because a lot of the jokes that he tells are quintessentially John Cleese. So it's interesting, growing up, I've spent quite a lot of time with him, and it's so interesting. Like, there was a familiarity to a lot of his jokes, and then I watched a John Cleese talk, and he actually talked about how he went back to Weston-super-Mare and did that teaching for 2 years. So I just thought that was something quite fun to share.
That's incredible. I think that's such a good story. And for me, the big thing that's kind of flagging to me here is the power of storytelling, the power of teaching, the power of communicating good ideas. It kind of transcends the actual content that you're delivering, and gives you this completely new world that you can kind of become, and different ways of expressing yourself. And I've no doubt that your godfather's influence from John Cleese is massive and such a big part of his life. And actually, even if it was just a year or so, would have had such a big impact. So big that perhaps he doesn't even realise perhaps how big an impact that might have had. And I think if we can look back over some of our life, parts of our life that have been so heavily influenced by different people, you know, on that reflection, on kind of joining those dots, in, you know, looking back and reflecting, you can kind of see these pivotal moments where they've shaped you. And I think that's an incredibly powerful thing, that people of influence, teachers, people that are doing amazing Instagram carousels and whatever else, we have this power to be able to communicate a message to people and to change fundamentally who those people are. You know, the kind of learning theory around this is a thing called affective learning. It's that thing that happens where your belief systems, your emotion systems, your value systems start to change over time because of you constantly being around certain influences and certain people, certain behaviors. There's a guy called Lev Vygotsky that came up with the zone of proximal development, which is this idea that just by being next to people, following what people are doing and being close to them, by, you know, physical proximity, that can change the way that you think and the way that you behave and the way that you act. And so just that kind of being really close to imagine some of those classes from John Cleese, right? They would have been absolutely incredible, I'm sure, because he would have had this same sense of humor and that same kind of passion and delivery that he had with all of his sketch shows and everything else. That would have been such an impactful thing. So the power of a teacher in that world is an incredible thing. And that affective domain of learning, where you can have an influence over people's values and belief systems and actually change what people do and their actions and their behaviors, is an incredibly... It's an amazing place to get to. It's incredibly hard, and it takes some real talent to get to change people's values. But isn't that an amazing place to get to?
Absolutely, and it reminds me of one of my mum's favourite expressions, which is "Dime con quien andas y te diré quién eres," which is "Tell me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are."
I love that.
So I always like wheeling that saying out. And I've got a question for you, Spencer. I do enjoy putting you on the spot. I think it's now my second time on the podcast that I've done this. Would you like to share who are your top 3 people that have had the most impact on you? Maybe teachers or maybe more famous people. Anyone that's had quite a big impact on you. Do you want to share that, and maybe why?
Yes. Always that nervous laughter when you ask a question like this. I'd say one of my... Okay, so I've got a couple that are coming to mind. I'm gonna cheat slightly and give you 2 for 1 to start with.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
And we'll do an episode on this one day for sure. I met a bookseller in India called Bablu. And one thing he always did when you asked him questions like this, he would immediately, unequivocally, straight into your face, go, okay, there's 3 things you need to know. 1, boom. 2, boom. 3, boom. Yeah? But sometimes he'd say 3 and then give you like 5 or 6.
Okay.
So go for it, Spencer. Just get in there. Just go 1, 2, and then if you start changing it, I think that's absolutely cool.
So there's
do
3
your 2
people.
for 1 if you want.
So there's 3 people that have been incredibly influential on my life. My first one is my dad. I mean, I had such an amazing and privileged childhood. Both myself and my brother did. I think we had such a caring and loving family that were very liberal. We kind of got away with a lot. If we were good, we still allowed us to grow and to be the people that we wanted to become. But so incredibly supportive. But on the influential side of it, my dad was a businessman for 20, 30 years, and I think even though I was never really close to the business that he was creating, it was always around me. It was this idea of creating stuff from nothing. The idea of giving value to people was so strong, and I think looking back, his kind of leadership style as a businessman and a kind of managing director of companies was enabling people to do the best thing that they can do in order to grow everyone's wealth, everyone's value. And I think that's incredibly influential from my dad. I think the other one I just mentioned was my brother. So that's number 2. My brother is incredibly influential. Again, for that kind of caring and big brotherly thing that people that you know your brothers can do for you. But I always had such respect for him because he was so intelligent, so smart, so good looking, so good at sport, all of the things that he was always that little bit better on all those things than me, which certainly later on in my childhood enabled me to push myself to try to become as good. So I think that always looking up to him was an amazing role model. My third one was the lecturer that taught me how to teach. And for one thing, he said to me, as teachers, you have the power to make somebody's life so much better, but you also have the power to completely ruin someone's life. And those words have really stuck with me forever. It means that I'm much more careful, I think, about how I deliver things and the way that I talk to people, because even the smallest thing can have a massive influence, particularly on younger people. And so you've got to be really careful about the kind of things that you say because of their belief, especially when you're an influential person and you're trusted. Their belief in you is so strong. Another one, so four is four is actually someone that we both used to work with, and this comes back to that proximity effect of being around someone and just their energy kind of pushing you forward, which was Guy Fernando, the CEO of the company that we both worked for at Freeformers. Incredibly influential when I first started my kind of entrepreneurial path. He actually said to me, "Do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur?" I said, No, I don't start a business, haven't started a business. He's like, "Of course you're an entrepreneur, you just need to believe in that." And I think that was a really big thing. And so that proximity effect of being close to businesses, again, gave me a big boost. I think the fifth really influential person for me is you.
I squeezed in.
Got to squeeze you in always. I think what you've done over the past few years to support me, like we did some coaching a couple of years ago together, where you led my coaching. You've been like helping me get fitter in the mornings. You've been like, I think, and everything that you do, I think, is full of energy, full of selfless determination to get people to improve their lives, even just 1% better. And I think that is something which I've taken on board so much. So namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste. From my heart to yours, namaste.
Absolutely. So I think those five people have been incredibly influential for me.
What a fantastic answer. I really, and do you know what? Because we speak a lot, so it was quite interesting that I'd never heard, like, it's unusual that for this type of question to get an answer that I'd never heard before. So it's particularly interesting hearing the answers with regards to I think I heard about your teacher and Guy as well, but I think with regards to your father and your brother, that was really some really powerful insight there into you and what makes you tick. So I'm glad I took the courage to, I made you take the courage to answer that question and share those answers with us.
But Himo, look, I need to know your most influential people. What are your three most influential people that have helped shape your life over the last few years?
Okay, I'd say one big one, in terms of creating more video, someone called Thomas Powell was quite powerful, because he was he just gave me a massive kick up the arse and was like, someone that he mentors Jay Shetty, and he said that Jay Shetty produced 1,000 videos in 3 years. You haven't produced any, get on with it. So that was quite a powerful kick up the arse to get started. I think even though I haven't spoken to him that much, it was enough to really get me going at the beginning of this year in January. And since then we've produced, I wouldn't say hundreds, but dozens, certainly. I've produced them together. You've helped me a lot with that as well. I'd say, for sure, you've been a massive influence, the inspiration. Like, I would not be able to get up at 6 o'clock every day if it wasn't for you, like, knowing that we've got to be there for each other. We've got to get up. We've got to start training. We've got to start, working. That has been such a powerful thing. And also, you're constantly raising your game, like the same thing with your brother. So I've got to constantly be raising mine. For example, you produced a few carousels, and I was like, I better produce my carousel. So just that inspiration has really been massively important. So I'd say that's your number 2. Number 3, I'm going to go with Edward de Bono. I just love his 6 thinking hats. That has been absolutely massive. And then I'm going to say number 4 is Kim Slade, the guy that teaches video, how to create video content just using your phone. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know how to do a lot of this stuff. And so he really helped me create my first long YouTube video, 10-minute video on the Six Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono.
Which is
So
awesome. Everyone should go check that out. I think that's such a good video still.
I'm really that was felt like something that was inside me for about 4 years, that video.
Yeah.
So it felt really good being able to actually produce it, and I'm really appreciative to Kim for helping me do that. So I think just off the top of my head, I'd go with those are the top 4 right now. How's that?
That's awesome. That's so good. And I like the fact that you brought in Edward de Bono. Just to add, I'm going to add one more to mine because that made me think really carefully about someone that someone I have met, but like literally met at a book signing. But that's Ken Robinson, Sir Ken Robinson. When he did his TED talk about the changing paradigm of education or creativity. He did 2. I can't remember what their names are. Creativity in schools and the changing paradigm of education. It was such a moment in my life where it completely changed the direction and my career completely. I was doing an MA in education. I'd been a teacher. I kind of had this realization that I was teaching people even though I didn't really know how to learn myself. And what it did was actually push me out of formal education, unfortunately, in some ways, but onto this brand new and amazing kind of career path. And his view on the importance of education and the importance of creativity in education is absolutely incredible and inspirational. So if you haven't seen his 2 TED Talks, read his books, then I'd totally recommend going and checking those out.
This is something that you could maybe make a carousel on, Spencer.
I think we've got a number of carousels. I was just thinking we should probably each do a carousel on influential people that have shaped our lives. And
this could work. By the way, just to rewind, what is a carousel?
Yeah. So I don't know how new this is, but my instinct, and from looking at people that are doing this a lot, is that it's only an emerging pattern and trend on Instagram over the last sort of 6 or so months. And this is, on Instagram, you can put 10 images together to form like a carousel, and you can swipe through them in a really nice way. What's really nice about the user interface is that it stitches the 2 images that are next to each other right next to each other, so you can't see the join between them, which means you can make really good narrative flows of images for 10 images long over a kind of what we call a carousel. And it means that you can, what I love about it is that it gives you a constraint to tell a story. It gives you 10 images that you can kind of weave something really interesting together and make a really great point across and get a really great point across to your audience. There's some amazing people that are doing some great stuff, particularly in the design world. We've talked already about Chris Do. There's a guy called Juju Branding. There's a bunch of people that are putting these amazing carousels together from a design perspective. But I think the medium can go way further than that and can start to tell stories about all kinds of things. And so stitching these 10 images together means that you can tell a really great kind of story through images that are connected together, and think about how you can construct that story to kind of have these wow moments towards the end as well to draw people in. I think it's a really great emerging medium format through Instagram.
And I've just created one on creativity by John Cleese. So
can't wait for that to drop. Is it? Have you pushed that yet? No, not yet.
No, it's not. I've not released it yet. I'm just going to write the copy underneath it. But I'm excited about this. It's the second one that I've done, but I've had a lot of fun making it, and I'm hoping that that everyone likes it.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I've had a quick sneak preview. Can't wait for that to drop. I think for me, the thing about carousels is that it takes a long time for me to create them, because you've got all of these different components. In fact, I had a conversation with a good buddy of ours, Joseph Charm, the other day on Instagram. He was like, we were talking about the carousel that I'd recently released, and I was saying, look, it takes so much time. It took that one took me, I think it was the hedgehog and the fox concept, and that took me probably end to end, I reckon, about 5 or 6 hours, non-stop, over the course of 2 days actually as well. And that was to create.
But how much did you enjoy doing it?
I love doing it, and I've learned so much, right? Because I was doing every single design element. I was designing these characters, creating this narrative flow, doing all that stuff together, and learning so much about that craft of weaving a story over those constrained 10 slides. But what I really want to do is improve on that and get quicker and quicker and quicker. So I think we've got several carousels that we could create out of this content that we've talked through today. Can't wait for your one to drop. I think that's going to be awesome. We need to like and share and get that across to as many people as possible. And yeah, just keep on going with it, I think.
Brilliant. All right, mate. Well, shall we call it a day there and catch up hopefully before the end of the year?
I think we should definitely try and do one before the end of the year. We're on this flow now of once a week. We can't let Christmas and New Year get in the way of that. We've got to keep on going. So yeah, let's figure out something cool to do during that break between Christmas and New Year.
Excellent. Well, in between then, don't forget to like, subscribe, tell all your friends about the podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Perfect. See you later. Happy Christmas.
I'm recording too.
All right. Do you want to start? Yeah.
No, I'm happy for you to start.
You sure?
Do your thing, please.
Welcome to the Spen and Nick Show. We're here really close to Christmas, which is exciting. I'm going to start again. I hadn't really thought about what I was going to do after that.
I'll do it.
Okay, you do
Welcome to I'll go for it. Welcome to episode... wait, which episode? Is this 6 or is this 5?
This is 6.
I reckon we should start again.